Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. I am the Magic Fat Storian, and we are here to talk about some magic news-ish. I mean, I titled these videos like Mega Magic News. The one that we did 2 days ago, it feels kind of like the right title, but in another way, it's like, I don't know. I don't know if this qualifies 100% as news, because this is stuff that's likely to happen with Magic the Gathering. Either way, if you didn't see the video from 2 days ago, here's the basic concept. Rosewater came out on his Tumblr. It's getting hot. I gotta take this off. Rosewater, he went ahead and posted on his Tumblr a whole bunch of questions from people asking, will this happen? When is this gonna happen? It's when, if, okay? So the whens are all things that are most likely going to come to Magic. The ifs are ones that probably aren't gonna come to Magic. So the previous video, we focused 100% on whens. Now, most of this list, again, is whens. It's all kinds of cool, exciting, random factors, but there are some things that are unlikely to return that I figured we would cover at the end. So, starting out, we got something pretty mild. The Planeswalker Duretti. What are the chances he's going to return? Well, that is a little when, which means it's most likely going to happen. We have big whens, which are pretty much guaranteed, and then little whens that are most likely going to happen. All right? How about a set based around the 5 caster types? And I didn't actually realize that they had done this. The 5 caster types are Cleric, Wizard, Warlock, Shaman, and Druid. That's pretty cool. That makes perfect sense, right? You've got Clerics for white, Wizards for blue, Warlocks are the black option. Shamans are red, and Druids are green. I don't know why Warlock didn't automatically link to black in my brain, but it does make sense, right? So you've got the 5 caster types. I didn't know that was a thing. I had never heard anybody reference those creature types as the 5 caster types, but it fits, right? It's like basically the different types of humans that are straight up magicians, depending on what they're in. If you're white, you're a cleric because you're more holy and you pray to the gods and stuff. The concepts work, you know? And druids have that sort of revering nature sort of vibe of a cleric, so that works. I'm not going to go into all those, but either way, that's funky. So what's the chances of a set based around the 5 caster types? That's a little when. So at some point we will see a set where it's based on a tribal theme of clerics, wizards, warlocks, shamans, and druids. I dig that. I'm down. Next up, we've got horror tribal. This is little when. It's interesting to note that when you go through these questions, it gives you an idea of what the wider Magic population is interested in. Horror tribal isn't something I would have expected many people to show interest in, but apparently it's on the list and it'll happen at some point. Next up, a set based around the concept of time traveling. Either there's time travel themes or it's just completely set in a different time frame where it's like this was hundreds of years ago or whatever. That is a little when. The next one, a 5-color planeswalker. A planeswalker of every color. That is a little when. So it's most likely going to happen, but not absolutely guaranteed. It'd be interesting to try and figure out exactly what a 5-color planeswalker would be. What sort of scenario? If we go back and we take the concept of Jace as the living guild pact, that could be a scenario where I could see them going ahead and going, okay, well, you know what? Now he's unified representation of all the colors. Something like that. But otherwise, without looking for a previous example of a planeswalker that could be a 5-color planeswalker, it's interesting to see how you would define the identity of a 5-color planeswalker, right? How do you balance that out? Obviously, if you have to pay all 5 colors to cast a planeswalker, they're going to have to be pretty powerful. The next thing we have is something I'm not a huge fan of, and that is the return of energy. So energy from the Kaladesh block is a big one. We're virtually guaranteed to have the return of energy. I think my problem with energy is less with the mechanic and more with the fact that I really didn't like the flavor concept of Kaladesh. I didn't like the helicopters and cars and trains. I have some rant videos in the past that I made where I railed on about this stuff. But either way, I think that everything that came from Kaladesh just kind of gets tarred with the same brush because I really did not like the Kaladesh block. Really didn't like it. Next up, we've got Monarch Returning. If you don't know what Monarch is, it's a funky concept that they came up with for the conspiracy sets, where basically the idea is, if I'm the Monarch, I gain some kind of benefit, like I get to draw an extra card each turn, right? I mean, if they did a different mechanic. With Monarch, it's drawing an extra card each turn. But when a player hits you, they get to become the Monarch. So it's this transferable sort of scenario where, okay, now I'm the king. It's really cool from a concept of just like flavor, and mechanically it's interesting too, because there's not a lot in Magic that gets like passed back and forth between players of its like inherent design. I like that. That's funky. So Monarch Returning is a little one. There's a good likelihood, but it's not guaranteed. After that, we've got one that a lot of people are going to be excited about, and I'll be interested to see how they execute it. And that is a plane based on Norse mythology. I'm a huge fan of mythology. Hopefully Wizards makes it about mythology and not mythology. So Norse mythology is something that's very cool. This is a big one. It's pretty much guaranteed. I believe the wording that Rosewater used was, there's too many people who want this for us not to do it. So that's guaranteed. That is very cool. A new card type, and that is Little Wen. And keep in mind, new card type doesn't necessarily mean something like Planeswalker or whatever. It could be something simpler like Vehicle, where it's like a subtype, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that. So, moving on, what do we have next here? Learning about sorry, that was from a previous video. I'm reading Ashnod as Ashiok. Ashnod's actually a really old character from the lore. And what are the chances that Ashnod will end up on her own card? That is a Little Wen. And that's cool, because I'm reading I think the books are right, well, maybe not. I'm reading the Brothers War novels right now. And the Ashnod features prominently in the first novel. So that's cool. Moving on, when, if, Ugin. Ugin coming back? Ugin is a big Wen, and that's not really much of a surprise. Let's think about it. Nicol Bolas and Ugin both coming back is not a big surprise. They're locked in the prison realm, and Rosewater even said if he wanted to get rid of Nicol Bolas, they would have killed the character off, right? So with that kind of logic, same goes for Ugin. If they didn't want Ugin to be around anymore, they would just off him during War of the Spark. So obviously at some point, Bolas will come back, and Ugin presumably will come back around the same time, maybe to thwart him. We'll see how it goes. Be interesting if somehow they teamed up for some reason. I'd be curious to see. All right. Next up, we've got, when are we going to get to see Jace's homeworld Vryn? Is that going to happen? That's a Little Wen. So at some point, we will get more background information about the homeworld of that Planeswalker. I do like seeing the worlds that Planeswalkers come from. One of the most recent Planeswalkers back histories that I've wanted to learn about is Elspeth, because we don't know about that plane that she came from, where Phyrexians use humans as comfort animals, right? That's a crazy concept, and that world would be interesting to learn more about. So getting to learn about Jace's homeworld is dope to me. When are we going back, or are we going back to Innistrad? That's a big one. We're guaranteed essentially a return to Innistrad. Innistrad sold very well. For those of you who don't know how Wizards currently determines what sets we're going to return to and which ones we don't, if you're like, how come we keep going back to Ravnica and Zendikar like for 3 times, but we've never returned to Lorwyn, we've never returned to Kamigawa, like why does it turn out that way? Well, the unfortunate truth is that the way they do things at Wizards of the Coast is the higher ups, they have to approve what's going to happen in terms of sets. And they want half return. So every like plane we go to a new place, return somewhere else that's done well in sales. So it doesn't matter how good or bad the world itself is. It's no fault of the world itself. So Kamigawa was an interesting storyline. It really was, actually. I thought what they did with Kamigawa was really cool. Same goes for Lorwyn. I found Lorwyn to be a really flavorful, fun concept, a cool story, but the sets didn't sell as well as Wizards would want, which is kind of crazy because Lorwyn was where Planeswalkers first showed up. But either way, they didn't sell as well as Wizards wanted. So basically what happens is the higher ups say, you can only do sets that have made this much money in sales. The set has to have done well. So that's why we're going to go back to Innistrad again before we'll go to Kamigawa or Lorwyn. If Richard Garfield being on a design team again, that's a little when. I'm looking forward to that. Anytime Garfield comes by, he shakes things up because he's not afraid to try crazy out there things. That's actually why sagas exist in Magic the Gathering now, because Garfield came up with the concept for Dominaria. So that's nice to see. Another Time Spiral set. The Time Spiral set was a sort of chronological mishmash of stuff from all kinds of different worlds and times. It was really cool in that regard, the way that they designed it. It's a little when, as in we're going to see it again, but that's basically when, that's also followed up by him saying that it's Modern Horizons, and like Modern Horizons was a Time Spiral set. So we're not going to get another Time Spiral that's the exact same as Time Spiral. We're going to get Modern Horizons, which, if we're real, is more like Time Spiral in terms of a mishmash, because they have a bunch of unused artwork that they then go, oh, we can finally use these different pieces of artwork. And I mean, that's a half decent use for them, but it's not as exciting as a properly formed Time Spiral block. You know what I mean? The chance for new card frames, that's a big one. When we're going to get new frames. And that, what you have to bear in mind is that doesn't necessarily mean a reworking of the entire frame of the card. It can just be something as simple as the reworking they did with legendary cards, where it has that sort of little triangular pointy bit at the top to let you know, hey, this is a legend. And I like that kind of visual representation. It's actually really useful. If you're a fan of a Johnny and a Johnny focused plane, that is, or a Johnny focused set, I should say. And a Johnny focused set is a big win. So that's pretty much guaranteed that you will see a set focused around a Johnny. And I'm cool with that. A Johnny is one of the planeswalkers that I'm more interested in. I think he's pretty chill. After that, we've got main counters in a set that aren't +1/+1 or -1/-1s. So a set where like there's a specific type of counter that is used a lot, and it's not a +1 or -1 style counter. Now that is a little one. So it's likely to happen, but not guaranteed. I like the idea, getting out there with a little bit of a new concept, like they did with the Ikoria keyword counters. I like those. I think that's actually a really smart idea. Moving on. Return of the Gatewatch. I gotta say, I'm gonna level with you guys. Especially if you're new here, not a fan of the Gatewatch. I don't like following the same planeswalkers over and over and over. When Magic started, the idea was you and I are planeswalkers, and we traverse the multiverse, grabbing all these different items and like creatures and stuff that we're gonna use in titanic clashes of power. You know, that sort of a scenario. And then Planeswalker cards showed up, and it was kind of like, they're the Planeswalkers, check out their adventures and what they're doing. And it's just like, eh. And then the Gatewatch came along, and they're like, no, really, this is now the main focus. Check it out. We're going to follow these Planeswalkers every set. We're going to do our own kind of like Marvel's Avenger thing with these guys. And it was just really, it got boring. I didn't like it. So the Gatewatch coming back is a big win. And for me, it's a big disappointment. I'm not looking forward to it. I find the Gatewatch to be bland and dull, but whatever. Let's move on to something that's not bland and dull, and that is the Return of Gavriel. Now, Gavriel, if you don't know, is a planeswalker that was actually created by a well-known artist, a well-known author, I should say, not artist, sorry. A well-known artist. Sanderson is a quite talented artist. He was tapped to finish the what is that series? The Eye of the World? No. Oh my God, it's 12 books. Why is the name not coming to me right now? Wheel of Time. There we go. The Wheel of Time series. He was commissioned to finish the end of that, and he has like amazing Mistborn novels or whatever. So he created the Planeswalker Gavriel, and Gavriel's a really cool Planeswalker. So the chances of Gavriel's return, that's a big win. We're pretty much guaranteed to get Gavriel back, and that to me is really dope. What are the chances of Aminatau making another appearance? Now, Aminatau, if you didn't know, is technically the most overpowered planeswalker ever created, who just made her own spark ignite because she willed it. Aminatau was created in a weird time of Magic the Gathering, where even the article where they discussed the creation of an Aminatau had some mind-blowing, crazy things in it, where the author of the article went off the rails talking about how they believe representing things accurately and that little girls are infinite fonts of metaphysical power. And it just sounds so great. It just sounds so crazy to me. But Rosewater says Aminatau's a little one. They want to bring Aminatau back, but she's too powerful. It's a real problem for them because they just arbitrarily made her so powerful in the lore that they just made up for this one card for like a commander deck. So that part of Magic history is always going to be a weird one. It'll be funny when we get further down the line in Magic and I'm doing videos like, remember 10 years ago when all this craziness happened, when Wizards was engaged in some weird, silly practices? Aminatau's a product of that time, which is a shame because Aminatau's artwork, I mean, Seb McKinnon, that guy's talented. More blue zombies. That's a big one. That one ties into Innistrad. So when we go back to Innistrad, we go because Innistrad had that very interesting take on zombies where you have your black zombies, which are reanimated by necromancers, and you have your blue zombies, which are more crafted by like Frankenstein monster style scenarios. Now, we've gone through all of the stuff that's going to happen or is likely to happen. Now I have a list of things that aren't likely to happen. Okay, so finding out the Wanderer's identity without a very good reason, highly unlikely. A return to Lauren and Kamigawa, as I touched on earlier in the video, not likely to happen. Sixth color coming to Magic, that one is a big no. That's a big no. Eldrazi showing up in meaningful numbers, like a bunch of Eldrazi showing up, that is, if Rosewater had his way, he said it would be a big no, but under the circumstances, it's a little no. So it's unlikely to happen, but possible. Learning about Ashiok's home plane and more of Ashiok's like history and things like that is unlikely. Part of Ashiok's allure is that whole unknown aspect about it. That would stand out more if we didn't have a scenario where you know almost nothing about the newer stuff that's going on with Planeswalkers, like for Theros, for example, and Calyx. It's like a little like, come on, guys, come on. A cyberpunk plane, that's a big no. I'm like, all right, good. I don't want that. A Phyrexian Planeswalker. And this was a no because Phyrexians can't generate sparks, which I think is weird because we haven't had explained to us how Calyx just generated a spark without being a regular being. So that to me is like, And then crossovers. Currently crossovers are listed as a little no. Rosewater said that, like, in crossovers, by that I mean like what happened with the Godzilla stuff that's in Ikoria. So Rosewater said that it would have been a big no before Ikoria, now it's a little no. So it's more like corporate mandates and stuff like that. I imagine we will probably see more crossovers like Godzilla. Not really a fan of that concept, but what are you going to do? Thought this was interesting to talk about. There is a lot of cool, exciting stuff in there for sure. A 5-color Planeswalker is definitely food for thought. But anyways, let me know what you thought about all of these different things, whichever ones excited you, which ones you don't care about, all that kind of stuff, and what you would like to see. Let me know in the comments below. If you want to like and subscribe, leave a comment. That's all really good for the channel. Helps it with the algorithm. I would appreciate that. Speaking of appreciation, thank you very much to my patrons and channel members for supporting my ridiculous channel. This is the Magic Fatstorian saying to you, I will see all of you lovely people very soon.